Hey guys, welcome back to Right on the Edge. I wanted to cover this one because I know my sister, uh, solo because I know my sister doesn't like this stuff. But I wanted to, so I heard there's updates on the Carmelo Anthony case. Just to give you a rundown, I think it was like last year. This kid Carmelo Anthony was having an altercation with another kid at some sort of game, like a track meet, some sort of high school event. And then there was some antagonizing going on. Different accounts say different things. Um, and essentially, this kid stabbed the other kid and killed him, like ending his life. So now he's on murder trial. And I know that the evidence at the time was, well, he had the knife. Obviously, he stabbed. But was it premeditated? Wasn't it premeditated? Who knows? And I know that immediately after he stabbed, he tried to run away and like hide the weapon right away. So I wanted to watch this. This is by Core TV 9 hours ago, just to see like where we're at on this. Because if it's true, obviously this guy should be put away for a long time. But let's see, we can find out.
Trial that the nation is talking about, a case which has divided the community. Austin Metcalf was a high school athlete at a track meet, sitting under the Memorial High School tent with his twin brother and teammates. Karmelo Anthony was a student athlete.
And his brother saw him get killed too. That must be rough, man. Just wanted to stop and say that.
From a different high school who sat under the memorial tent and was asked to leave. That's when things escalated. Witnesses say Karmelo refused to leave and told Austin, "Touch me and see what happens." Austin did touch Karmelo, and what happened next ended the life of one teen and has another teen on trial for first-degree murder. Witnesses say Austin stood up and put his hand on Karmelo's shoulder and either shoved him or touched him non-violently. Then Karmelo pulled a knife out of his bag and stabbed Austin. Austin died, and now Karmelo is on trial facing decades behind bars.
This is tough, because obviously if he did it, he deserves it. And this situation has ruined the lives of two young men. Now, obviously, I don't have any sympathy for a murderer if he is one, allegedly. And I'm not sure how this ended, right? So I don't know. I'm assuming that's what this update is. I knew it was going to happen soon, but I've kind of avoided like watching anything on it all day. But I can't help but think the loss of potential just because of misguided youth. But that being said, you can't just kill someone, And honestly, he deserves a decade behind bars if he did.
And the question for the jury, was this a justified killing done in self-defense? This story is tragic, but only one teen had a weapon and only one teen survived. Is this a case of self-defense? We're going to break down the facts of the case with Cody Thomas at the courthouse and break down Texas law to see if this was a justified killing. I'm Vinny Politan. Let's investigate.
All right, man. Yeah, let's do it.
There's been a lot.
Just gonna say it. That was a pretty cool intro. Pretty fucking cool. Like some CSI stuff.
I want to talk in this case about Karmelo Anthony confessing to the crime, that this is an open and shut case. But yes, Karmelo Anthony, yes, he did it. Yes, he admitted that he did it. But that's not what this case is about. This is not a confession case. The confession that everyone is pointing to is the fact that after he stabs Austin Metcalf, Karmelo Anthony says that he did it, that he stabbed him. That's not in question in front of this jury at this trial. That's not a question of fact. That's presumed for the most part here by both sides. Why? Because the defense is alleging self-defense. This isn't about somebody else did this.
You actually have to prove harm, so It's really hard. But the law said there's standards set by precedent to determine what qualifies as self defense. And one of the qualifiers is that you actually have to be in you have to be in or feel like you're in risk of your life. Which if somebody tapped you on the shoulder or shoved you away, that's not enough. Be one thing if they're trying to shove you into a train or something like that, but to like let's just say he just went like or even pushed him a little bit. That's not enough. It doesn't reach the limit, right? Yeah, you have to.
No, he did it. Karmelo Anthony did it. He stabbed Austin Metcalf. But the question is, did he do it in self-defense? So in order to figure all of that out, the key to this case is going to be for the jury to figure out what happened under the tent.
Yeah.
What happened in the moments before Austin Metcalf is stabbed to death by Karmelo Anthony. That's what is significant here. The actual stabbing itself, both sides agree, because when you claim self-defense, you're saying, yeah, he did it.
Yeah.
He did it. Yeah. Okay, we get that. But he was justified in doing it. And to figure out whether or not he is justified, the jury has to understand and have a clear picture of what's going on.
I don't remember all the fine details, but I do remember when I first heard about this, it seemed inevitably it was going to be a murder charge. Now, maybe they revealed something else like in the trial that I didn't see, but I'll look up some details after this. I'm not sure if this is going to show the verdict or not, but I'll look it up at the end if it doesn't.
On under this tent at this track meet, the back and forth between Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf and perhaps other people underneath the tent. And the people that were there, the witnesses, they've been talking about this. They've been testifying about it. And the jury has to analyze their testimony, because we know eyewitness testimony, well, sometimes it's somewhat consistent, always has variations.
Yeah.
My goodness, 7 people see a car accident. You're going to have 7 different versions of what happened. There'll be differences, slight differences, and sometimes larger differences, all of which the defense is going to go after. Yeah. So what happened under the tent is extremely important for this jury to figure out. And for us to analyze the case, we need to understand what happened in the moments leading up to Karmelo Anthony pulling the knife out of his bag. What took place prior to that? Now, Texas law is also extremely important in this case, because you cannot provoke someone in Texas.
I'm glad you brought this up. Yeah, because I was wondering what the state law specifically says. And if you can't provoke anybody, so let's say you're the one egging it on and then somebody actually acts on your egging on, well, then that takes away your self-defense. That's rough.
And then
I mean, it's good, but it's rough.
This is important, right? Like, you can't provoke someone into a confrontation, into a fight, and then claim self-defense in Texas. And we're going to break down the law for you.
That's a good law.
In this episode, because it's extremely significant. And it's exactly what the judge will instruct the jury on, and how the jury will come to a conclusion. Juries take the facts, and then they take the set of facts that they determine collectively and apply it to the law that the judge gives them. And the Texas law is very specific about provocation.
We're going to see how this goes, guys.
Huge theme for prosecutors, because if you provoke the fight, if you provoke the confrontation, you are not entitled to claim self-defense in the state of Texas.
Which is good.
Now, here's the problem for us. Not a problem for the jury, but the problem for us in trying to figure out whether or not this provocation took place, whether or not it was Karmelo Anthony provoking this confrontation underneath the tent, because there's no cameras in the courtroom, which to me is I mean, I could do a whole nother episode just on this issue. When you have a
100%
case
agree,
like this
man.
that divides the community, and there's going to be a verdict, and there's going to be a reaction to that verdict, right? And people didn't get to actually see the.
I thought the same thing about the Diddy trial, and there's like a few other ones where I'm like, oh, you're not gonna allow cameras in there? I mean, come on. It's like a trial, like it's one of these huge trials. You should be able to have cameras in there filming it. Like, as long as you're not making a circus out of the whole thing.
The trial, it lessens the trust in the system. So
Exactly.
the judge in this case, in keeping cameras out, has done a disservice to the public that the judge serves in Texas and around the world, because it's much more difficult to trust a verdict if you don't see the evidence. And like every other part of our government, the judicial branch is working for the people. And the people here are not going to get to see it. But the good news is, folks, that we have someone in the courtroom at the courthouse. His name is Cody Thomas.
Nice.
And joining us now from the courthouse, Cody Thomas. Cody, great to see you. Wow, what a case. So you are our eyes and ears inside the courtroom. Obviously, cameras have been prohibited, microphones prohibited. Give us an idea of where we're in the defense case, right? Where the defense is going.
Yeah, so this is day 2 of the defense's case, Vinny. We know we had a Saturday session a few days ago. I was in there. The defense got in 3 witnesses after the state rested. The state rested after only 21 witnesses being called. And today, so far, we're out of the lunch break now, but there were 3 witnesses called this morning. 1 student, an officer who was at the scene, and then another student.
24 witnesses is a ton. That's a massive amount.
And the first student who was on the stand was, giving his account of what went down, saying that the rain was coming down. They went into a dugout. Him, Karmelo, and about 2 or 3 other people went into a baseball dugout behind the stadium, to which a coach told them they couldn't be there. So they came back out. This one student who was testifying, a minor, so I can't name him, but he testified about warming up on the field along with his 4x100 meter team, and then Karmelo going back in the bleachers. He didn't see Karmelo again for a few minutes until he looked up in the stands and saw what he described as, a crowd under the memorial tent with Karmelo there. He noticed his teammates. He says he recounts people standing up. He says that he was walking towards the bleachers because he heard a commotion. He looked away for a second, and then he saw, a bunch of kids sporadically, running from under the tent.
Yeah,
and then he saw Karmelo running off, and of course he's describing the moment that the stabbing happened.
Yeah.
But under cross-examination, Benny, when the prosecutor came up, the prosecutor brought the video back up, the surveillance video of the situation, and he brought up where the kid would be warming up on the field. So you see him, and then you see where the stabbing was going down. And the prosecution challenged it because the kid's account says that he was walking towards the bleachers because he heard some things happening. He paused it. He's like, boom. The prosecutor literally says, boom, in the middle of the courtroom. He's like, this is where the stabbing happened, and you're still standing right here. Okay, so then that happens.
Did you see anything?
Just going through the motions again. And then the prosecutor was like, we've spoken before. And the kid's like, yes, sir. He's like, when I showed you this video when we spoke, you admitted to me that you were wrong about some of your accounts. And
Be fair, you never go remember something perfectly, and you probably had ideas implanted in your head. And while I don't think you should intentionally lie, not entitled. I probably believe that they were just recounting to the best of their ability. I don't think it was malicious, or I try not. I would hope it's not malicious. Yeah, I'd hope it's not malicious, so I'm not gonna hold that against them. However, to be corrected and called out is okay.
The kid agreed that he was wrong, and his eyes were open after the meeting that he had with the prosecutors before this trial. So it was a very challenging moment there with that first witness, Vinny.
Let me ask you, Cody, a big picture question here. And obviously this is difficult for children testifying in a murder trial, right? That's tough. Yeah. We know eyewitness accounts. You have 7 people, you get 7 different versions. We get it. But here you have different high schools. Is the testimony breaking down in any way where, the kids from Memorial are seeing one thing and kids from Centennial are seeing something different? Centennial Karmelo School versus Austin School. Is that playing out inside the courtroom, that we're getting 2 different versions of what's happening here?
It actually is not, Vinny, and the way I've described it is that the story is like a tree. It's the same trunk, but different branches. The foundations of the story are the same, but there's some minor details that may have shifted. As, for example, some of the kids say that the push was one arm. Some say it was two arms. Some say it looked like maybe a slight punch. Some say the push wasn't aggressive. Some say both of the kids were getting aggressive. But the situation, there's commonalities between them all, and the main one being that Karmelo eventually put his hand in that book bag saying, "Touch me and see what happens." 100% of the students, not only the prosecution's witnesses, the defense's witnesses as well, the student witnesses have said this same thing.
That's good.
Which
They're
leads
being
me,
honest for the most part.
The defense, I would imagine they would have called student witnesses that were testifying in favor of Karmelo, but it seems that, the facts are the facts here, and they're walking down this story and not the big pictures of the story haven't changed, only minor details in it. Again, like the pushing, whether it was one hand, two hand, or whatever, what have you, whether they were sitting or standing. But the big picture parts about the hand in the book bag, the touch me and see what happens.
Yeah, they have to, it goes back to that thing where they're trying to say, well, was it provoked? Was this guy provoking it? Was it self-defense?
The phrasing, they all said they weren't really scared about something happening because they thought it was just two boys at a competition mouthing off at each other, being from different schools. They all said that not only did Austin ask him to leave, that multiple people under, the memorial tent asked him to leave because the way they describe this tent culture, they've had coaches on the stand from all these different schools talking about how each tent is, like the locker room, and you wouldn't hang out in an opposing team's locker room. So again, same trunk of the tree, just some slightly different branches coming off of it.
And the branches aren't breaking down by school to school. It's just witness to witness, like in any other case that we would have, where, 5 people see a car accident and, there's going to be slightly different versions, maybe different colors of the car. I've seen that happen inside a courtroom. Okay, so the tent seems to be a big issue here. We keep talking about what's happening under the tent. And that brings us to another big question. Why is he there to begin with? Does the defense have a different explanation, or what is the defense explanation as to why Karmelo Anthony would be under the tent of a different high school? Like you said, like being in another high school's locker room. You wouldn't do that in a gym. I never did track. I think you're a track guy. I think you have some track experience.
I did in high school, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so explain what the defense and or the witnesses are saying about that as an
very interesting
explanation, because to me it doesn't make sense, but I'm trying to figure out why he would be there to begin with.
Right, so there's two narratives that the defense is putting on as far as why he was under the tent. One, they're talking about, this big rain, and a lot of the students have talked about this.
Sorry about that, guys. You'll notice like a little cut here because I was doing. But essentially they're talking about just different details in the case, if it was raining, if it's not raining. So let's continue watching. And obviously, it's super interesting. I don't think a verdict's come out yet. I thought maybe it had, but I was spoiled a little bit by one of my roommates who was yapping at me.
Come down heavy, then it'll stop and get just a little nasty and yucky and be a little misty, and then it can come right back, similar to Florida. I know you're very familiar with Florida rain down there too. But they talked about
southern rain in general. Sometimes it'll be raining in one place, and then like a couple blocks away, it'll be like completely dry and sunny.
He wouldn't want to be standing out there soaked. And oddly enough, Centennial was the only team out there with no tent that day. That's a big thing they're harping on. And so when this rain started coming down, they're saying Karmelo was in the bleachers just looking for somewhere to get out of the rain. And then compounding upon that, we heard about this kid named Eddie. Eddie is an adult now, so we can identify him. They talked about this kid named Eddie who was childhood friends with with Karmelo's ex-girlfriend at the time. And Eddie was under the Memorial tent. He went to Memorial High School, and over the weekend on Saturday, he actually testified. Now, we've heard this Eddie character in opening statements. We've heard that from several of the student witnesses that Karmelo came up, he kind of gave Eddie a handshake, as if they were, really close friends. But then Eddie got up on the stand on Saturday and all but said, like, yeah, we were cool. I knew him. He knew the girl or was dating the girl I grew up with, but I wouldn't say we were really good friends, which was shocking to me because we've heard that name so many times. And then for him to say that, but then the defense challenged back because Eddie was like, yeah, I know him, but we don't know each other that well. But then the defense came back with several pictures, picture after picture, 7 or 8 or 9 pictures of Karmelo and Eddie in the same photos at Eddie's house for, birthday parties. And there was group photos and there was photos of just them.
Man, I'm gonna say something real fast. I don't blame this guy for trying to distance himself from a potential killer, but he shouldn't blame.
So I thought that was kind of a win for the defense, showing, all right, saying you didn't know him, but here you are with 8 or 9 pictures together.
Here you are.
So
8 or 9 is not a lot, though.
He was trying to get out of the rain. He knew Eddie. Eddie says they didn't really know each other, but the defense came and proved a little otherwise under their cross-examination on Saturday.
And this is an important fact in all of this, in trying to sort through the facts of what happened.
Yeah, dude, sifting through this, trying to find the truth of the matter. Tough call, man. Tough call.
Under the tent, it all begins with, well, why was he there to begin with? So you've got rain. But it seems other teammates were warming up. He's not warming up. He's not competing in the track meet, is my understanding, right? He's there sort of helping, but he was hurt.
So his coach testified also on Saturday. That was the first defense's witness. We've heard the narrative that he wasn't competing. We've heard things about he was suspended from school. Nothing about the suspension has come up in this trial so far. But today...
Well, all that stuff's kind of irrelevant, right? It doesn't really matter if he was suspended, not suspended. Even if he wasn't supposed to be there, right? Which I can see how that plays like a little bit of a role. However, that's not the main issue here. The main meat and potatoes is, did he do this intentionally? Was he planning this? Is this murder?
We found out through testimony that Karmelo was actually an alternate for the 4x100 meter race, and this kid that just testified said that he was actually on schedule to do one of the jumps, whether it was triple jump or long jump, he couldn't remember, but he actually was competing that day, which was, another crucial fact, because we've heard a lot of things about he wasn't supposed to be there. Well, yeah, he was on the team, he was supposed to be there. It's just unfortunate that this sad, act had to happen here, but he was supposed to be there that day.
Okay, well, there's been a lot of rumors, information, misinformation, disinformation. That's why we have trials, to get the facts out inside the courtroom. And Cody Thomas is bringing it to us because, again, no cameras, but we've got Cody Thomas. So let's talk.
Sorry, guys. I was laughing at a text from a friend. Now the situation. There's an awful situation. Sometimes your friend just sends you a really funny meme. You'll laugh at it, dude.
Talk about underneath the tent now. So he's there either to dodge the rain, to see his friend Eddie, or perhaps to start some trouble, right? Because there's that narrative from the other side. So what have we heard? You said we've heard these different branches. What is the tone of what is happening under that tent? And what is the moment when things escalate, right? When does it go from nothing to something? And are there different versions of that?
Well, the common denominator, just to make it as simple as possible for people to understand, from 100% of these witnesses, defense witnesses and prosecution student witnesses, down the board, they say he came under the tent, wasn't malicious. They say he came under kind of calm, didn't really say much. Some say that he saw Eddie, gave him a handshake, didn't say much, but he was sitting there under the tent. So now they're asking, does anyone know this kid? Who is this kid? This and that. He's just here. They start asking him who he is. Eventually,
which is normal. Like, who are you, stranger? What are you doing here? Oh, maybe he just knows Eddie. Maybe he's a friend.
Some sort of verbal altercation start happening where they start asking him to leave. And it's not just Austin. It's not just Austin and his brother Hunter. There's kids that have been up there, mixed of all races, because we know the racial aspect is a big component here. But we have black.
When it comes to murder and crime in general, right, or just all this stuff, race should never play a factor. Like, I hate the fact that part of the defense's thing that they did at first was to bring up race and say it was racist. If you choose to stab somebody as a black person, you've chosen to stab somebody in the same way that if a white person chose to do it, they still do it. It's the action that matters. Like, who gives a fuck about the race? That's stupid. It's irrelevant.
kids testifying, white kids, Hispanic kids, so kids mixed of all, over 10 of them are testifying about how they even chimed in, like, hey man, come on, get out of here, you know, you shouldn't be under this tent, just go back to wherever your tent is. And they said it all started kind of calmly, and then they said Karmelo was being stubborn and didn't want to leave, like, you're gonna have to make me leave, you know, they described it as him
just
trying to be like a tough
out.
guy, you know, and then eventually they
let's be honest, right? Like, we all were young once, just wiling out. That's what it sounds like. I mean, you know, obviously it didn't end that way, but that's what it sounds like, right?
you know, some coaches say that Austin was a thrower. He was one of the discus shot put throwers. They've all kind of echoed the sentiment that the throwers were kind of the leaders, and they were, you know, he was a senior, so, you know, the upperclassmen are picked to kind of take charge when the coach isn't directly around. So eventually Austin kind of takes this lead to try to be like, all right, man, like, it's enough of this. It's time for you to go. Things start getting heated. They do admit that Austin was getting, you know, heated as well, getting frustrated, and they were going back and forth as, you know, two testosterone.
I'm really glad people like this have the time to, like, go in here, see what's really happening, right? And then they're giving this blow by blow. Like, they must have taken really good notes to get all this.
Fueled
Or this guy has amazing
you know how that
memory.
goes with boys in competitive sports. And then, you know, eventually they talk about the frustrations escalating on both sides. And then Austin saying, like, you know, I'm not going to fight you at a track meet. They're getting aggressive with each other. And then eventually, you know, the statement that we've heard many a time, Karmelo has his hand in the bag, touch me and see what happens. Austin goes up to touch him, to push him. Again, different accounts of that, whether it was a touch, whether it was a push. And that's when the whole unfortunate circumstance occurred here.
So it's as simple as, you're under this tent, you shouldn't be here, leave. I'm not going to leave, make me leave. And then it escalates to touch me and see what happens. So
touch me and see what happens, right? It really depends on how the jury sees the escalation. Was it caused by the person that wasn't supposed to be there, right? This is tough.
The verbal confrontation being described by the witnesses seems to be initiated by Karmelo Anthony. Is there anyone that said, well, no, they were getting loud and telling him to get out before the refusal?
No, there's been no testimony as far as that. Down the board, all the prosecution's witnesses, all of those students have been saying they're calling Karmelo the instigator. They're calling him the aggressor. They do admit that Austin was
he was responding to instigation, is what they're saying, right? I mean, shit, we've all seen these things. I'm sure everybody that watches this or will watch this video has seen somebody escalate something, whether it's a bar, whether it's a school thing, whether it's, you know, memory, or even in your own life, right? We've all seen an escalation like this. We know who the aggressor is. Like, you know, we've been in a situation. Everybody has.
You know, fueled up too, and being too prideful, you know, boys as they get. They even talked about how when, you know, the statement with Karmelo with his hand.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he brings up a good point. The pride too. The pride. Neither one would want to back down, especially if you start to say something like that. An instigation.
The book bag, they said Austin said back to him, like, oh, you're not going to do anything, calling his bluff. He's like, oh, you're from Frisco. We don't do that around here. And they're all sitting there not thinking that there would be an actual knife in the bag. So, you know, all of them have said that Austin was kind of being a tough guy too. And then he went over to him, goes to push him, goes to shove him. But again, verbal altercation that led to this unfortunate event, you know, something that, you know, it shouldn't have been a stabbing here. We got two young kids who had their whole lives ahead of them, two 17-year-old men, and just this heightened mistake here that happens to be the most pinnacle of mistakes that has affected both of their lives just emotionally, and obviously it's changed their lives forever.
Absolutely. Absolute tragedy what happened under that tent. But it's up to this jury to figure out exactly what it was. So let's talk about the prosecution case and the law here. Let's start first with what the prosecutor said in his open. I think this is extremely significant. The prosecutor says, you simply cannot provoke someone. And when they touch you, you take their life. This case is about plain murder, simple and senseless. Find this man guilty of first-degree murder.
That's a pretty fucking strong statement. That's a pretty strong statement, man. And you know what? I'm inclined to agree. Unfortunately, I'm inclined to agree.
And the important part of what the prosecutor said there is you simply cannot provoke someone. And what he's talking about is Texas law.
Yeah.
Texas has a very specific law when it comes to self-defense and provocation. Let me put it up on the screen for you. The statute, Texas Penal Code, Section 9.31B4. The use of force against another is not justified if the actor provoked the other's use.
I mean, that's pretty black and white. I don't know how
Or
they're gonna get over
attempted
that.
use of
They'd have to sway
unlawful
the jury in some way.
force. Okay? You provoke what happened, you don't get to claim self-defense. That's the purpose of this. Now, the language in the statute is very plain. So there's been cases and litigation and decisions made by courts in Texas. And basically that's broken down to 3 parts of this provocation. Now, it's up to prosecutors. They have the burden of proof. You want to disprove self-defense, which is what they need to do here. You need to disprove self-defense. They can do that by proving provocation by Karmelo Anthony. Here's what they would need to show. That the actor words of Karmelo Anthony provoked the attack. The actor words were for the purpose of a pretext for doing harm. That the actor words can be reasonably calculated to provoke the attack. So what are we talking about here? That what Karmelo Anthony is saying and doing under that tent is to provoke Austin Metcalf to attack him, okay? That's what prosecutors need to prove. That the purpose of Karmelo Anthony provoking him to attack him is so that he can then attack and do harm on Austin Metcalf, which would be the knife, the stabbing, and that all of this, his words and
yeah, I like the fact he's like the knife, the stabbing, like, you know, like he's just picturing himself doing it.
His acts were used to reasonably
Pretty
provoke
fucking
this.
good,
So
dude.
you need evidence that this is the reason he was doing it. And it can't be words alone. You have to do something else. And what prosecutors are saying here is the something else is the going under the tent, the bringing of the knife.
Yeah, why did, you know what, that actually, that hasn't been brought up yet. Why did he just have a knife there? You know, like, what was that about? Because that's a confusing element, you know. I mean, I'm not sure what sort. Oh, I'm guessing it was like a steak knife or something. But why was that? And being, I don't think being under the tent's enough, right? That's not enough, like, to provoke people for like attacking or whatever. But why did he have the knife? You know, bring a knife to a situation like that. People, you know, you make natural assumptions, right? Everybody making natural assumptions.
All
it's
of
crazy.
That goes beyond just words in this case. Let's bring back in Cody Thomas, who's still with us. Cody, this
poor guy having to
testimony,
sit there. It must be hot.
How is it coming out? Are the words coming from the students themselves, the witnesses?
Yeah.
Are prosecutors feeding them these magical words about provocation, etc.? What's going on inside that courtroom?
So the way it's been going, Benny, you know, as each witness gets up there, these are young kids. Some of them are still in high school. The prosecutor warms them up with, you know, normal questions. You play football. You're still in school. You're going to graduate. You know, all of that. Then they get into, of course, the horrendous events of that day. And they're walking through. They give their accounts. And then eventually the prosecutor has been ending pretty much all of his questioning, whether that be under direct or with some of these students, as he's under the defense's students, witnesses, under his cross-examination. He'll just ask them, who was the instigator here? Who would you say was the aggressor? Karmelo. Who was in the wrong? Karmelo. You know, things of that nature. You would say that Karmelo is the one. So I guess to your point, Benny, they are saying that word. Are you familiar with provocation? Yes, sir. Would you say Karmelo was provoking Austin Metcalf? So yes, it's kind of being fed in that way, but
to be fair, they have to use the terms that the law states. So by asking that, they're not really feeding. It's more like making sure that the person they're talking to has a grasp of the meaning of that word. so that, you know, they can give the clearest picture possible. I don't like the term feeding it to them, but you know what I mean.
Defense is not putting up any
Yeah,
objections here
I don't
because
like
I mean
that
it's
term.
just a clear-cut question. Do you understand provocation? Yes, sir. Who would you say was the
Oh,
provoker?
good. He goes
here?
into it.
Karmelo.
Yeah, good job.
And that's just how he's ended it with 5 to 7 questions each time one of these students wraps up their testimony.
So give us an idea, because one of the things that the defense talked about was the fact that, okay, all these kids are from the same high school, you know, they're friends and teammates of the victim in the case. Is there anything coming out that would indicate or potentially make a juror think that these kids are colluding together, that they're shading their testimony to help their...
Bro just straight up frowns and nods like, no, he's like, yeah, their stories aren't working together at all.
their teammate and their friend who was stabbed to death that day? Is any of that making its way into the cross-examination of these important witnesses?
Not that has been spoken upon thus far in this trial, Vinny. I mean, these witnesses get up.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there for this portion of the reaction, right? But let's just Google real fast if there's been a verdict or anything like that, just to verify it, because I don't know. So let's see. There we go. There's the closing arguments today. Defense arrested. All right, let's look at this. Let's see what this. It's real. I'm deaf. I can't hear nothing. All right, maybe let's not do that one because I don't want to figure out how to work sound on the desktop for that. Danger of bluffing. There we go. Let's look at courthouse. Defense rests in the Karmelo Anthony murder trial after student witnesses grilled over inconsistencies in statements. Right, claims to act in self-defense. I was crying. He was crying. There was a coach comforting him. The witness said, "I would say this trial is the best way to describe it." Crying. Oh, so one of the witnesses didn't do that. I heard something about there being a plea deal. Let's try that. Let's see. Deal in the Karmelo Anthony case. Let's see. If the judge allows. So nothing yet. So it hasn't been, the verdict hasn't been verdicted yet. That's where we know, man. They gave their testimony and yeah, dude, and here we are, right? But on that note, that's gonna be it for today. Let me know if you want to see some more stuff like this, or if there's any like legal cases you've been following. I like true crime stuff. This one right here has been very interesting because it's kind of a divisive case, mainly because people decide to bring race into it when, let's be real, it should have nothing to do with race. Person was killed. It should just have to do with the evidence and the facts. And jurors, I saw in that other news article, is like, there are no black jurors. I'm like, well, who cares? Like, honestly, I mean, who cares? These people have to be vetted, you know, remain unbiased, and they can't show bias in any way or they get replaced. it shouldn't matter because it's a murder thing, right? In an ideal world, it should not matter. But I understand why some people might think it matters, but it shouldn't. It looks like a pretty clean cut case where even the witnesses are kind of agreeing, you know what I mean? But on that note, good night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.